Are you really making your own decisions? Are you the master of your own destiny? If so, what happens when new evidence suggests otherwise? And can psychology and neuroscience help us to find out? You may have heard about this experiment by Benjamin Libet. Participants were asked to flex their wrist, and he recorded brain activity associated with the movement. They could do the action at any time they wanted. It was completely voluntary. But before they were consciously aware of having made the decision to move, there was a noticeable readiness potential in the motor cortex. This is an area of the brain that's active prior to voluntary movement. They knew what they were going to do before they knew they were going to do it. But this is not the only evidence for the idea that conscious thought is not what we think it is. So what does science have to say about free will? Free will implies that we can choose between different options in life based on what we want or believe in. But if our decisions are already made before we're aware of them, then it seems that we don't have free will. Rather, our behavior is predetermined. So let's take a closer look at some of the factors that might be influencing our decisions without us even realizing it. First, we need to understand how decisions are made in the brain. To make a decision, various brain regions send signals to each other along neural pathways, triggering the release of neurotransmitters, which are chemical messengers that allow neurons to communicate with each other. This communication allows different parts of the brain to process and exchange information, ultimately leading to a decision. The prefrontal cortex is one of the most important areas involved in decision-making. It's responsible for rational thought and behavior, but it's not the only part of the brain involved. Other areas, such as the parietal lobe, which processes sensory information, and the limbic system, which is involved in emotions and motivations, also play a role. Decisions are therefore not made in just one part of the brain, but rather through a complex interplay of multiple regions. So what influences these processes? One factor is the environment around us. All of the things we experience, see, hear, smell, taste and touch, as well as our internal states, send signals to the brain, which then processes all of this information to form a complete picture. This means that every single decision we make is influenced by our surroundings and previous experiences. But what does this actually mean for free will? If we consider the physical constraints of neurons, it becomes clear that our actions are limited by the laws of physics. Neurons can only fire if they receive enough stimulation, and they can only pass on a limited amount of information. This suggests that the number of decisions we can make is finite. Additionally, the brain needs energy to function. This energy is supplied by blood, which contains nutrients and oxygen. This means that our decisions are also constrained by the amount of energy available to us. But what about mental constraints? Our memory is limited, and we can only hold so much information in our mind at once. This means that the decisions we can make are also limited by our cognitive abilities. Libet's research suggests that conscious thought may not be the driving force behind our decisions. Instead, unconscious processes may play a larger role. Unconscious processes are mental activities that occur outside of our awareness. These processes influence our decisions by providing the brain with information that it uses to make judgments and predictions. For example, we can recognize faces without consciously thinking about it. This ability allows us to quickly process social cues and make decisions in social situations. Similarly, we can recognize objects without consciously thinking about it. This ability allows us to quickly process visual information and navigate our surroundings. Research has also found that unconscious processes can influence our decisions in more complex ways. For example, our emotions can influence our decisions even when we're not aware of those emotions. This is because the limbic system, which is involved in processing emotions, sends signals to the prefrontal cortex, which is involved in decision-making. One way that unconscious processes can influence our decisions is through implicit bias. This is a type of prejudice that we may not be aware of, but that can still influence how we treat others. For example, we may have implicit biases based on race or gender that we don't consciously endorse, but that can still affect our decisions. Another way that unconscious processes can influence our decisions is through emotional reasoning. This is when we use our emotions as the basis for our reasoning rather than logic or facts. For example, we may feel uncomfortable about a certain decision, but we're not able to identify why. In this case, our emotions are influencing our decisions, but we're not consciously aware of it. Research has also found that unconscious processes can influence our decisions through intuition. This is a type of decision-making that's based on our gut feelings or hunches. Studies have shown that intuition can be a powerful predictor of outcomes in certain situations. For example, doctors who use their intuition to diagnose patients are able to make accurate diagnoses more quickly than those who rely on tests and data. Neuroscience has also shed light on how our brains make decisions under conditions of risk and uncertainty. The orbitofrontal cortex is an area of the brain that's involved in processing reward and punishment. Research has found that this area of the brain becomes active when we make decisions in situations of risk and uncertainty. Additionally, the amygdala, which is involved in processing emotions, also becomes active in these situations. This suggests that our decisions in risky situations are influenced by both our desire for reward and our fear of punishment. Ultimately, our decisions are shaped by a complex interplay of factors. Our environments, both internal and external, influence our decisions by providing the brain with information that it uses to make judgments and predictions. Unconscious processes such as implicit bias, emotional reasoning, and intuition also play a significant role. By understanding how our brains make decisions, we can gain insight into the factors that shape our choices. It's important to note that while unconscious processes can influence our decisions, we still have the ability to reflect on our decisions and make changes. We can become more aware of our biases, challenge our intuitions, and consider the potential consequences of our decisions. Ultimately, our decisions are the result of a complex interplay of conscious and unconscious processes. So what does this all mean for free will? If our decisions are influenced by unconscious processes and constrained by the laws of physics, our memories and our cognitive abilities, does this mean that we don't have free will? Some argue that if our decisions are predetermined, then we don't have free will. However, others argue that free will is an illusion and that we should focus on understanding the factors that influence our decisions rather than trying to find a deterministic cause for them. Perhaps the answer lies in the way we define free will. If free will is the ability to make decisions without any external influences, then it's clear that we don't have free will. However, if free will is the ability to make decisions that we believe are our own, then perhaps we do have free will. Ultimately, the question of whether or not we have free will is a philosophical one that science can't answer definitively. What do you think? Do you still believe that you are the master of your own destiny, or are you now questioning the nature of free will? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. Thank you for watching.